Today is July 26, 2015. We're in building 131, and we're doing a video about the priority unit 22650, which was the fill of a post-retrieval pit in the center of our building. We made this a priority unit because at the bottom we found three pieces of obsidian. One was a very obvious tool. It turned out to be a blade, and then the other two were found piled below it, essentially. And so none of the other teams had any feedback for us, but the chipstone team that looked at those three tools said that the first one was indeed a blade that was made through the percussion technique. But what was interesting was that it was from Nenezida, which it doesn't normally, you don't normally make the tools from that source in that way. The other interesting thing about it was that it was burned at a high temperature that the specialists had never seen before. It had bubbling on the surface and was barely recognizable as obsidian. The other two pieces were not as burned. One was slightly less burned and one was not burnt at all. The second piece was an exhausted core, and the third piece was a percussion flake, and they were all three from Nenezida. So we have these caches of obsidian in post-retrieval pits elsewhere at Çatal. That's not necessarily very new. But what's interesting about this one is that there's no way for those points which were found, or those three pieces which were found in such close association, to have been burnt by the fire, because one was so burnt and the other two were not nearly as burned. So that means that at least that one piece had to have been burnt elsewhere before being deposited in the post-retrieval pit. So in general, we have a lot of fire and destruction that's part of the story of this building.